Hello everybody, this is Clearbox Coding and today we're going to start object-oriented programming in Java. So this is going to be a series about object-oriented programming. It's going to be a couple videos. First, we're going to go over classes and objects, then data encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism, and abstraction. So we're going to start off the video series with classes and objects. So object-oriented programming is just a certain way of programming. It's a certain style. And what it does is we take data and information and store them inside these things called objects. So say we have this object here. This object might store some data. We'll call it obj1. And it also stores behaviors that this object is capable of doing. So that's really the most simple form of what object-oriented programming is. It's going to allow us to take data and behaviors and store them inside these things called objects. This reduces redundancy in coding and it keeps things very neat. Once we actually start implementing it, you'll see it's kind of intuitive. But when you get started with object-oriented programming in Java, the first things you're going to learn about are classes and objects. So really quick, an object is just any real world entity. So literally like almost anything you could think of can probably be represented as an object. So a one that I like to do is a cat or a dog. So over here we have like a cat, and we can represent this as an object. You could represent a car as an object, a boat. So any real world entity, almost anything can be represented as an object. Um, so when it comes to objects and classes, the way that this is going to work is we're going to want to represent these objects in our code. So we might have a cat as an object. We might have a user as an object. So we're going to want to represent these objects inside of our code. And the way that we do that is we first build a blueprint for those objects. So that's what classes are. All classes are blueprints to help us actually create the object that we want to make. So I'm gonna go with cat for this example. So when we start a class, the way it's going to work is we're going to define our class and say we want to create cats. So we create a cat class. And then remember that our objects store data or information about the cats. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to like end up storing in our class are these things called data fields. You could think of them as attributes or characteristics. So what are some characteristics of a cat that we might want to store in our code or in our object? Some important information about a cat. One thing I could think of is a name. So every cat is going to have a name. What's another thing we could think of? I could think of age. Age is definitely an important thing that you might want to store. And I'll do like one more characteristic just to get you solid on the idea of fur color. So this is some information we might want to store about our cat in order to represent it in our code. So we have name, age, and fur color. So these are all being stored as the data in our object. Now, another thing that we can also store in our object is behaviors. So what are some behaviors that this cat can do? Well, this cat is going to probably be able to meow. So we might want to add that as a behavior. And, meow. And then this cat is also probably going to want to, has a behavior called sleep. So this is the simplest form of thinking about classes. What classes are these blueprints, and they say, hey, if you want to create a cat object, it's going to have to contain this information. Our cats are going to have names, our cats are going to have ages, and our cats are going to have fur colors. Our cats are going to be able to meow, and our cats are going to be able to sleep. So we're containing all of this inside of what we're going to eventually make an object. But this is our blueprint for the object. It tells us what information we need about the cat and what the cat is going to be able to do. So now getting on to objects, all objects are there instances of these classes. Here you could think of it as kind of the actual cat. So we have our cat class. This is our blueprint to create a cat, but it's not a cat. Our object is going to be our actual cat. So let's create an object here. We'll call it C1. So C1, remember, we created a blueprint. It says our cats are going to have name, ages, and fur color. So C1 is going to have a name, an age, and a fur color. All right. But C1 is a cat object, so it's actually going to have values for these. These aren't really, not, sometimes they might, but most of the time these are going to be empty, and then we're going to end up setting the values. So for C1, we're going to name our cat Luna. Luna's age is going to be 3. And fur color will be black. A cool thing about object-oriented programming is now once we have our blueprint, we can create as many classes as we'd like. So we can create another cat, a friend for Luna. And we'll call it C2. Name, age, and fur color. We'll call this cat Pluto. Age will be 4. Fur color is yellow. So this blueprint, this class is going to allow us to create a bunch of cat objects. And these objects, they allow us to store this data neatly. This name, this age, and this fur color. Instead of storing it all inside of variables in our main method, like C1's name, C1's age, C1's fur color, C2's name, C2's age, C2's fur color. These values are actually contained inside the object. So it keeps our code nice and neat. And it's very intuitive. It's going to allow us to access it, not access it if it doesn't want us to. And then also these cats are going to be able to perform these methods like we said before, like meow. And I'll show this when we code it, but you'll do something like c1.meow. So all cats will be able to perform this meow method, c2.meow. So this was just a quick overview of what classes and objects are. We're going to get straight into the implementation inside of Eclipse, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick conceptual overview of what classes and objects are in Java. All right, so let's get straight into the implementation. All right, so now that we went over the general idea of classes and objects, what we're going to do is we're going to actually implement our classes and create some objects with those classes. So before we went over that, we're going to create a class cat. So I already got started here. The way that you define a class in Java is you could do class cat. In this case, it's public class cat because that's the name of the file. But so this, remember that this is going to be our blueprint for the cats that we're actually going to create. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to define those attributes that we were talking about before, or those characteristics of the cat. So let's do /data fields. And these are the attributes or characteristics of the cat. So the first attribute we had was a name. So we're going to define a string name. We're going to define an int age. And we'll do another one here. We'll define a string fur color. So like an example of a string name is going to be like Luna. It's just stored inside of a string variable. It's the best type to store it into. Age is going to be a number like 5. That's why we stored it as an integer. And fur color is going to be a string like black or something like that. And that's why we store this one in a string too. So now that we have our attributes or our data fields of the cat, what we're going to do is we have to actually create the cat. So we actually create the cat in Java with these things called constructors. The way that it works is a constructor is written like this. It'll be public and then cat. So a constructor has no return type, so there's no return type here. It's just going to be public and then the name of your class. It has to have the same name as your class. So here is what we call our default constructor. All this means is Our default constructor is where we don't take in any values. So say someone comes to us and they say, hey, I want to use your blueprint to create a cat, but I'm not going to give you any information about the cat. I just want to use your blueprint to create me a cat. What we do is we're going to go to this default constructor. So the reason why this is a default constructor is because in between these parentheses, there's no values. So there's no parameters here. That means that we're intaking nothing. There's nothing to take. We have no information about the cat, like the name, the age, or the fur color. So they say, hey, create me a cat. I'm not going to give you any information about the cat. So what we do is we could just set the values to whatever we want here. So this will be our default cat. So the way that we're going to set these values is we're going to do this dot name. So is equal to Luna. We'll make Luna our default cat. So this dot name is equal to Luna means that this cat that we're creating, its name is going to be Luna. We are going to set the age. So this dot age is going to be equal to 4. This dot fur color is going to be equal to black. So this is what we're going to create if the user comes to us and tells us, hey, create me a cat. I'm not giving you any information about the cat. We're going to just return them a cat called Luna, which is age 4, and its default fur color is black. Now, what if someone else comes to us and they want to create a cat, but they have a specific name they want to give the cat, they have a specific age they want to give the cat, and they have a certain fur color that they want the cat to be? Well, that's where our overloaded constructor comes into play. So we're going to have another constructor, which is going to create a cat if we are given, or create a cat that takes on the values that we're given. So this one is actually going to have stuff in the parentheses or parameters. So we're going to intake the name, remember. We're going to also intake the age, so int age. And we're going to lastly intake the fur color, string fur color. String fur color. All right, so this constructor was for if they gave us no information about the cat. In this constructor, as you can see, we're actually taking in the name, the age, and the fur color of the cat. So if we take in those values, we want to make this cat and set its values to whatever we take in. So the way that we do this is before we set the name by doing this dot name. So we're going to do this dot name, and we're going to set it equal to whatever name we intake. So name. So the way that this is working really quick is this dot name is referring to the characteristic of the cat. So the actual data field, they're actually highlighted the same color. So this is saying the cat that we're creating, its name characteristic is going to be set to whatever name value is passed here. So that's why these are the same color as well. So that's kind of what's going on here when we say this dot name is equal to name. So this dot age is going to be equal to age. We're going to do the same thing for age, and we're going to do the same thing for fur color. This dot fur color is equal to fur color. All right, so now we have two constructors. We have a constructor for if someone tells us they want to create a cat and they give us no information about the cat, so there's nothing in the parentheses, we're just going to create a cat and we're going to name it Luna. It's age 4 and the fur color is going to be black. And then here is if the user wants to create a cat and they give us information about the cat, then we're going to set our cat's values to whatever information they gave us. So this dot name is equal to whatever name they give us. This dot age is equal to whatever age they give us. This dot fur color is equal to whatever fur color they give us. So let's create a main method here. Public static void main string args. All right, so we have our main method here. We're actually going to create our objects in the main method. Remember, this cat class is just a blueprint. The main method is where we create our objects. So inside of here, let's create our first cat. Now that we have our constructors, we're actually going to be able to create our cats. So we're going to do cat C1. So it's the name of the class, then whatever you want to name it. I'm just going to name it C1. Is going to be equal to new. Anytime you create an object in Java, you have to use this new keyword. So new cat. And this one is just going to use the default constructor. So what's going on here? We're saying, hey, we're creating a new cat and we're gonna give you no information about the cat. So this, we didn't pass any values. So it's gonna go to this constructor over here, which is the one that doesn't take in any values, and it's gonna create the cat using this constructor. So it's gonna set C1's name to Luna, it's gonna set C1's age to 4, and it's gonna set C1's fur color to black. So let's just make sure that's what's going on. So we'll do system.out.print, and then we'll do C1.name. So we created our cat. Let's see what our cat's name is. So our cat's name is Luna. So that makes sense. Because remember, here, when we created our cat and called the default constructor because we passed in no values. So this goes to this constructor over here, and it sets this cat's name to Luna. It's going to set this cat's age to 4 and this cat's fur color to black. So let's print the C1 dot fur color, age and fur color, just to be sure. Okay, so let's make sure all the values for our cat are correct. Yes, so Luna, 4, black, those are the values for our cat. Just to make this a little less ugly, we'll do print ln. So it goes on a new line. So yeah, Luna 4 black. So our cat's name is Luna, our cat's age is 4, and our cat's fur color is black. That's because we gave it no values, so it called this constructor and set the values to these. Now let's create a cat using our overloaded constructor. So we're going to create cat C2 is going to be equal to new cat. So here we're actually going to pass in values. We're going to create a cat and we're going to say, hey, I want my cat to have these values. So let's look at our constructor here and see what it takes in. The first argument should be name. So down here, let's make the first argument name. So we're going to put Pluto. So the first argument is the string, the name of the cat. The second argument is going to be integer, whatever age we want to make the cat. So we'll make Pluto 6 years old. And then the third parameter is going to be fur color. So we give it an argument here of yellow. So now when we create the C2 cat, it's not going to go to this constructor. It's going to go to the constructor here, where the one that takes in name, age, and fur color, because we passed it name, age, and fur color. And it's going to set C2's name to whatever name we gave it. Well, we gave it Pluto. It's going to set C2's age to whatever age we gave it. Well, we gave it age 6. And it's going to set C2's fur color to whatever fur color we gave it. So C2's fur color should be yellow. So let's create that cat. And let's print out its values just to make sure that everything looks good. C2.age, C2.furcolor. Perfect. So here, let's take these out for now and rerun this. So yeah, down here we have our C2's name is Pluto. That's perfect because we passed it Pluto. Its age is 6 because we passed it 6. And its fur color is yellow, and that's because we passed it yellow. And it's set it to those values that we passed it. All right, so now remember the good thing about object-oriented programming, or the good thing about classes and object, is now that we have our blueprint, we can create as many cats as we want. We can create cat C3. C3, and then is equal to new cat. This one will be named, we'll call it Tabby. Its name, or it'll be 4 years old. We'll make it 3 years old. And its fur color will be yellow. Make it gold. So now we can create the C3 cat. This one is going to call the overloaded constructor because it's taking in the name, the age, and the fur color. So let's print out C3's name, age, and fur color. So here we're going to run this. Perfect. C3's name, age, and fur color is Tabby, 3, and gold. So this is what I mean by this acts as a blueprint. So this acts as a blueprint because it has the attributes of the cat that we need to assign to the cat, and then it has the way to actually create the cat. So it allows us to actually create our C1, C2, C3 objects. And now instead of having a bunch of variables for C1's name, C2's name, C3's name, C1's age, C2's age, and C3's age, they're actually just stored within the object. Those values are stored within the object. So it allows us to neatly contain all this data. So that's it for now. Maybe I'll do one behavioral method just so you can see how those are going to work. So the way that behavioral methods are going to work is they're written like methods. So we're going to do public void meow. So remember, all void means is there's no return type here. And maybe with this method, we just want to do system.out.println meow. Okay. So now the way that this works is since all these cats were created using the cat class, they all have the ability to meow now. They all can use this method. So let's do C2 dot meow. So let's hear Pluto's meow. If we do this, that's it's printing meow, so it's calling this method, and this method system out prints meow. So it's calling this method from C2. So yeah, that's all for now. I think in the next video, we'll go over getters and setters and then maybe start data encapsulation. But I think this is a good overview of how classes act as a blueprint and then objects are just instances of those classes. So we created a blueprint to create a cat, and then our objects are the actual cats that we created. So yeah, thank you guys for watching.